Xenoblade as a series asks quite a few existential questions. Xenoblade 1 questions predetermination and our own actions, Xenoblade X asks what makes us human, and Xenoblade 2 asks what makes us, us. Xenoblade 2 explores these questions further with the blades rather than the humans because the blades are constantly in an existential conundrum with their very unusual life cycle and relationship with their own memories. Running through it pretty fast, blades start as a core crystal until they bond with a driver and take on a physical form. When the driver dies, the blades return to their core crystal to be awakened by a new driver. Upon being reawakened, the blade starts anew, having no memories or attachment to their past life. As far as I understand, no religious reincarnation works the way it does with blades. You wouldn't retain your physical appearance, and you wouldn't know for certain that you had a past life after being reincarnated. This causes several blades in the story to enter identity crisis mode, knowing that they had some kind of past life but are unsure if they are consistent from that past life to their current one. Memories, of course, would play a big role in this quest for consistency across lifetimes, but those are privileges that blades don't have. There are three main blades whose stories I'd like to explore further, comparing and contrasting their identity and memory struggles. Let's start with the Paragon of Torna in Jin. Jin is quite a complicated character, so for the sake of brevity and staying on the topic of memories, this will not cover everything he has to offer. Jin is awakened by Laura and forms quite a strong bond with her during their time together. On their quest to stop Malos, Jin is approached by Teo, who recognizes him from his previous life when he was bonded to a driver named Ornelia. That alone is a very strange part of Blade reincarnation, that you can be recognized by someone from your past life, while you will not recognize them. The same kind of carries over when Jin visits Ornelia's house and finds a photograph of himself. It's a house he is certain he lived in, but he has no memories or proper emotions about this place. An entire life of hardships, celebrations, battles, and friendships that Jin is internally disassociated with. He and Ornelia were members of the Defense Force, so even though Jin is technically the same person he was with Ornelia, being a fugitive with Laura is a much different life. A different life that can give him different values and beliefs than those of his previous one. It creates an internal conflict within him that's impossible to solve and adds some good emotional weight to this scene. It's impossible for Jin to know exactly how he thought and how he believed in his prior life and whether those prior thoughts should influence who he is now. Jin is able to get some insight from his past self, however, because he wrote down his thoughts in a journal, which he finds in the house, and this journal contains quite an important tidbit of knowledge. Jin wrote down a way to be one with his driver and maintain his memories, to become a flesh eater. Just knowing that he wrote this down in his past life tells Jin that he greatly valued his connection with Ornelia. Was she as important to him back then as Laura is now? There's an answer to that question, but Jin can't possibly know it. And Laura's actions afterwards don't exactly make his life any easier. As such, Jin takes no chances with Laura and eats her heart out after she is fatally wounded. The memories Jin has made with Laura are so precious to him that he's not going to move on. He did not want to be a blade in the Architect's system, trapped in the cycle of forgetting who he was and the people he knew. Except you can argue that this isn't even a positive thing. Laura herself was likely going to be forgotten, given the only people who know her that are alive are Minoth, Adam, who's probably moping on a farm somewhere, and Gort, who's probably gonna die soon. So yes, Jin has prevented Laura from being forgotten per her dying words, but for Jin himself, this is now an eternity of resentment towards the Praetor and the Architect. Just those few years of positive memories with Laura now has to outweigh the upcoming 500 years that will definitely not be pleasant. That's not entirely unrealistic to this world, as Numa's thoughts and the end of the game mirror it quite well. However, for Jin, this built-up pain and resentment over 500 years can have a target. To Jin, forgetting memories isn't just the cycle of life that a blade follows. Blades are instead having their memories taken from them by the Architect. So with the memory of Laura lodged nicely in his hippocampus, he seeks to kill the man himself, while then also killing blades to free them from the unjust cycle, which may be taking it a step too far, but I mean, he's ending the world anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter too much.
Why can't anybody see my side of this?
Because you're wrong.
It is the single negative memory of Laura's life being taken, which is only negative because of the several positive memories beforehand, that drives Jin and his goals. We don't really know what memories and experiences Jin had in the 500 years between games, but they don't really matter. It is that one memory of the turning point in his life that matters. He burns down Ornelia's house along with his photos because he has the goal of his current and now only life. It was brutal, but Jin got the consistency he was looking for across lifespans, where now he will only have one life to set out and achieve his goals. Compared to Jin's psychological memory conflict, his Aegis War comrade Brigid is in quite a privileged state with her royal status. Her core crystal is passed down along the royal line forever, or until she becomes a baby titan or whatever. It seems she is always given to either the Emperor or Special Inquisitor. Either way, Brigid knows that throughout her multiple lives, she will be a member of high Ardanian nobility. Her values and beliefs are probably not drastically different throughout all these lives, having to spend each singular life defending Morardain. And with this known consistency, you'd think she's not as bothered by reincarnation. She and her driver have similar, if not the exact same roles they did in her previous life. There can't be that much change in who Brigid is internally throughout this process. Brigid has another leg up as she is able to use the resources available to her to bridge any remaining gap. She writes her experiences in a diary and knows that Morardain will preserve this item, allowing her to refer back to things she said or did in past lives to try to attach to herself and learn from these past lives. Now, she must be very picky about what she chooses to write in there, since she was able to refer to something Mithra told her 500 years ago with a diary about the size of a teenage novel. Or she just has really small handwriting. It's a miracle that Jin even found his journal, given he was stolen by Gort, but unless the Ardanian Empire collapses, Brigid won't have that hardship anytime soon. But despite these advantages, Brigid still feels uncertain about her past lives. No matter what is written in that diary, it's all written from her point of view. This could be a glaring hole in Brigid's attempt to find consistency across her lifespans. She never knows what anyone else thinks of her, she only knows her own thoughts of herself. Another issue is that Brigid isn't exactly an artist and isn't writing a children's book. There are no pictures. When Hayes shows up in Xenoblade 2 under a different alias, her two former comrades have very different reactions. With actual memories, Mithra recognizes her and is confused by her new name and core crystal fragmentation. Brigid is instead just introducing her as one second. Fan Lenorn, with seemingly no real connection to the goddess of the Praetorium. Brigid is beholden to the words on the page, and when she reads through sections about the Aegis War, does she actually visualize everything correctly? Does she visualize Hayes as who she truly is? Seemingly not, as even the most accurate physical description would still likely be led astray by Brigid's preconceived notions about who Hayes is and who Fan Lenorn is. Even with all the resources of an empire and being bound to nobility, Brigid is still limited and runs into the same problem as Jin, a blade with little to no resources and bound to a fugitive. She still struggles to know who she really is. As such, she still tries to get whatever information she can about her past life through characters like Mithra and Jin. One of those sources is, unreliable.
Let me get a look at that journal. I bet it needs a few corrections.
So when that opportunity presents itself, Brigid presses Jin for really any information. It's again a miracle to be able to talk to someone who knew you 4 to 6 lifetimes ago, and if she was similar now to how she was that far back, she can be relatively identity crisis free. To that extent, Jin does set Brigid's mind into that relative ease by telling her that she is the same now as he knew her 500 years ago. But you can still, again, argue whether this is even a good thing. Perhaps now with this greater sense of connection to her past selves, Brigid is further distraught by her inability to remember it. It's harder for her to now disassociate any feelings or emotions that could have come in those past lives when she reads through them. It would be an interesting thing to tap into, but hey, we're on the final stage of climbing the world tree, and if you're not related to the Trinity Core, you best be moving aside. Rounding out our group of memory miscreants are Praxis and Theory. Blades I didn't encounter at all in my first playthrough because informants are one of the worst things I have ever seen in any video game ever. Basically, both the blades are bonded with 2 different bounty hunters and rob core crystals from shipments and drivers. And what better way to everlasting friendship than grand larceny? However, during a fight with the main party, one of the bounty hunters falls, leading to Rex and the party obtaining Praxis's core crystal. Upon her reawakening, of course, Praxis has no idea about her past evil life or her relationship with Theory. and the main party also doesn't really fill her in. And while ignorance is bliss for Praxis, it's not for Theory. The memories that used to be shared jointly between the duo now rest solely on just one of them. It's a very bizarre burden for Theory to have, as she's essentially taken it upon herself to remember the past for someone else. Theory tries to use spears and landmarks to rouse Praxis's memory, doing her best to try to regain the friend she's lost. There is a physical Praxis she can interact with, but it isn't the same Praxis she committed Grand Theft Core Crystal with. That's kind of terrifying, to have a good friend physically be there, but not mentally. It is of course an even more daunting scenario for Theory, because Praxis has been awakened by the enemy. Even if Theory did interact with this new Praxis and try to reinstall the values and memories they had in their thieving lives, it would be greatly at odds with the new values developing by being bonded with the main party. In another fight, Theory then goes at odds with her current driver, killing him so that she can be reawakened by the main gang and be reunited with her friend. And this is what I find really interesting, because at this point neither Praxis nor Theory remember their actual friendship. They just remember someone telling them it exists. Despite this, Praxis is very determined to rekindle a friendship that she has only heard about. Even though she is living a different life, she doesn't want what she heard was a part of her past life to go away. To be fair to Praxis, Theory's actions speak pretty clearly that she wasn't just lying about their friendship, she kind of killed her driver, so Praxis can be fairly certain it did exist. However, that's all she knows. It existed. She can't recall certain experiences, emotions, or feelings about that friendship. All she can recall is another Blade who was not satisfied with just those memories and made a decision to lose them in order to create new ones. As Praxis tries to get Theory to warm up to her, a key part of Blade reincarnation comes into play. Unlike Brigid, the new life Praxis and Theory are leading are contradictory to their prior ones. Everyone in All Rest remembers them as the bounty hunters they were and can identify them as such. And unlike Jin, they aren't recognized by old friends, they're recognized by old enemies. All these guys of Fonsamima have been wronged by the thieving duo in the past and have no reason to believe that they've changed when they encounter them again. The duo receive the kind of welcome they'd expect of their past lives, even if they now mentally have nothing to do with it. Theory sides with, well, Theory. The experiences and memories that Praxis and Theory currently have are what define who they are in this moment, and Theory is fine with that inner assurance, not believing it's worth their time to right the wrongs of their past selves. But in practice, people just aren't going to be able to move on in the same way Praxis and Theory can. It's not just the memories and experiences you have of others that matters, the memories and experiences others have of you matter as well. This was one of the problems with Brigid's diary, that it could not contain what anyone else thought of her, so she felt like she had an incomplete view of herself. While Theory is content with these negative memories and believes it's not worth the time and effort to try to undo their actions, Praxis disagrees and wants to be able to make amends for those past transgressions, making it so the internal change in herself and memories is reflected externally in how others think of her. She believes that these memories people have of her do shape her current identity, and whether she has the memories they have is not relevant. It goes as you expect. They bake cookies, they bully kids, friendship is restored, and Theory gives a smile that doesn't haunt my nightmares. Now, unless I've missed something in the last 20-something years of my life, I don't think we can exactly relate to these struggles because, well, we don't for certain reincarnate in carbon copies of ourselves indefinitely. However, these blades still demonstrate how crucial memories are to shaping one's identity. Knowledge of who you were in the past can help better form who you are in the present or who you want to be in the future. Why does continuity even matter so much to Brigid and Jin? Why can't they just move on as if their past lives hadn't happened? Because it's still their past, it was still them, and they are treated as such, regardless of what a lack of memories would indicate. And not having these memories across their lives inhibits their growth as individuals. Those memories and an understanding of their past can better inform their current actions. It can make them act how they believe their past self had and hence how their present self should, or it can make them act contrary to their past self because they know it can be a detriment. For us as feeble humans, we can't just forget who we were for a chunk of our lives and then pull a 180 life change like Praxis and Theory. We have to maintain those memories, whether bitter or sweet, in an attempt to continue to develop and progress ourselves into who we truly wish to be, and then be content when we don't get another chance. And hey, wasn't that just Jin's entire message throughout the main game? It's nice how Jin's message didn't just stand alone and they reinforced it through all the little side stories that they have with these blades in their own memories. Brigid's uncertainty in the best case scenario reinforces Jin's message. Praxis and Theory's ability to understand their past and progress based on it reinforces Jin's message. They didn't just leave Jin's extremist thoughts out to dry, and maybe he just wasn't full of shit after all.